Good morning. Thank you for joining us today as we recognize Plastic Pollution Awareness Day here at the state capitol in Georgia. We're here to discuss an issue and to highlight facts that are often overlooked but keenly impact us not only here in Georgia, not only in the United States, but globally. Plastic pollution. You don't think about it possibly in your daily routine, but if you consider how many plastic products you use on a daily basis as an individual, bottled water, plastic straws, one-time use, disposable eating utensils, grocery bags, countless other objects that unfortunately are part and parcel of our daily lives. The numbers are staggering, really almost unbelievable when you take a look at them, because in fact each year Americans throw away or recycle billions of water bottles and use approximately 500 million disposable straws, I'm told, daily, which is a remarkable fact. And of course, disposable plastic bags are omnipresent, are they not? Americans throw away 35 billion plastic water bottles every year. And we've produced more waste, plastic waste, in the last 10 years than we produced in the last 100 years, a century. And half of the plastic that is created is used only once before it's discarded. And therein lies the rub. The Container Recycling Institute points out that 100.7 billion plastic beverage bottles were sold in the U.S. in 2014. That's 315 bottles per person. And the pollution resulting from these products don't spell well for our environment. Countless animals, birds, turtles, dolphins, and others are injured and killed by consuming these products or being caught or tangled in plastic waste. This should be alarming to all Georgians, to all Americans, to all citizens of the world, because protecting our environment is the single most important investment that we can make in securing a safe, healthy, and prosperous world for future generations. Now, speaking of future generations, we are relying on the next generations to step up and lead on these issues. They can see things sometimes that their elders take for granted. They look with keen, fresh eyes and idealism. Hannah Testa, who's going to speak with you shortly, is being recognized today and has been spearheading plastic pollution awareness here at our state legislature. And she works tirelessly to see that the numbers that I've been telling you about can change, can be brought down. She works to educate Georgians about some of the simple changes they can make in their daily lives to reduce their reliance on plastics and ways they can reduce plastic consumption in communities, including very basic things like using reusable grocery bags when you go to shop, paper drinking straws. Who ever heard of such? I was raised on them, weren't you? But now you have to hunt to find them. So thanks to people like Hannah, steps can begin to be taken to reverse these alarming trends and replace our wasteful habits with habits that are environmentally conscious. In the Senate chamber later this morning, we'll be honoring Hannah, recognizing her, and recognizing February 15, 2018 as Plastic Pollution Awareness Day here at the Capitol. And this is the second year that we have raised the banner and called out the alarming news that we all need to wake up and change our ways and insist on changing policies that lead to the proliferation of plastic pollution. So I encourage all in the sound of my voice to open your eyes wide, to look at your own use of plastic, whether you discard it, whether you recycle it, and consider simple changes that we can make to cut down on plastic pollution as individuals, as families, as well as working for public policy changes. So I'm very happy to host Hannah and her family here today at the Capitol, support the work that she is doing to take a stand against plastic pollution and advocate for ways to reduce our reliance on plastic and educate the population on the dangers of plastic waste. You've all seen, I know, the picture of the whale that died, and when they did the autopsy, dozens and dozens of plastic grocery bags and other plastic waste had been ingested by that great sea mammal, and that's what took the life of that great sea mammal. And this is one glaring example of what's not an isolated incident, but a trend across the planet. We can follow in the footsteps of Hannah and her generation, but don't count on them to do it all. We all need to put our shoulder to the wheel, become better stewards of our environment, and ensure that it's going to be here thriving for generations to come. Great damage has already been wrought on our environment. The time is now, and all in the sound of my voice can do something individually. And that's part of the good news. When you hear these staggering numbers, you shudder to think, how could that possibly be changed? Well, it can be, and we can look across past generations and see when decisions were made by policymakers and by the general public, people can change their ways and choose a better path. Thank you all for coming this morning. Join us, please, at the Capitol shortly to recognize Plastic Pollution Awareness Day. And I am so happy to introduce to you from Cumming, Georgia, in Forsyth County, a young woman who, although only 15, has been for years engaged not only in dialogue but in practice to change the way we approach our single-use plastic and to really embrace the world and all that's in it as part of the universe, and do our part as human beings to make a difference. I'm very pleased to turn the mic over to Hannah Tesla. She's been honored countless times, really, and I know that will continue to be the trend. She formed Hannah for Change, and she is a voice that's not going away, is only going to grow stronger, leading and pointing the way and educating about plastic pollution. Thank you. Hannah, we're so happy to have you.
Thank you. So thank you, Ms. Orrock, and distinguished guests. I am truly honored and humbled to be here today. I'm also energized by this resolution and filled with confidence and optimism that citizens and government can work as one to solve these problems. Plastic Pollution Awareness Day was first established last year, and it was the first event of its kind in the nation. And it was a huge success, and over 90 different organizations from around the world supported this day. This resolution is a positive first step for our state in educating the public about the harmful effects of plastic pollution. This resolution signals to the nation that Georgia will lead rather than follow by acting boldly yet responsibly. We need to educate Georgians because the facts are alarming. For example, the average American uses around 500 disposable plastic bags each year. The U.S. uses approximately 500 million plastic straws every day, and that could wrap around the Earth's circumference 2.5 times. Americans throw away 35 billion plastic water bottles annually. And scientists predict that by 2050, the plastics in the ocean will outweigh actual fish. Currently, 300 million tons of new plastic is produced annually, and less than 10% of that is actually recycled. What is also alarming is that China recently decided to stop accepting the U.S. and other countries' recyclables. So with that amount of plastic that the U.S. disposes of, we will find most of it will end up in our landfills, our lakes, and our oceans. Based on these statistics, I believe that we need to alter our relationship with plastics because we aren't going to be able to recycle our way out of this problem. Our most effective solution is to reduce our reliance on single-use plastics. This will require several strategies and creative solutions, including awareness and education, and involving government, business, and citizens before we can say we have truly conquered one of the greatest threats to our planet. Speaking of creative solutions, I wanted to point out one guest here today, and that's Miss Kara Woodring, and she's from Aardvark Straws. So Miss Kara will distribute paper straws to anyone who would like some. And Aardvark Straws is the original paper straw company here in the U.S. going back to the 1800s. So they are the only U.S.-based company that sells biodegradable paper straws. Thousands of restaurants have made the switch from plastic to durable, trusted, and safe aardvark straws. As I conclude, let me just say that we cannot control the past, but we can focus on the present to mold a better future for our children, our grandchildren, and beyond. Let's continue to work together to educate citizens and find practical solutions for a better Georgia and a better planet. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and if there are any questions, we're happy to take them. And we're so pleased to recognize and appreciate the representative from Aardvark, who is going to be with us today.
I have a question. When
Yeah.
you speak of policy and things of that and changing, why is some states charge for their plastic bags at grocery stores when Georgia doesn't do that?
Yeah, so that fee is really good in helping more people realize plastic bags and having to bring their own reusable. And right now, Georgia doesn't have that in place, but having this awareness day will hopefully get more people educated about it so that hopefully one day we will have a fee or maybe even a ban in place to stop using plastic bags.
Yeah, I would just add too that there are countervailing forces in society that are really quite fine with the way things are now, and so policy changes community by community or state by state based on people getting active, both policymakers and citizen advocates. It doesn't just fall from the sky. We're down here January through March making policy every year, and as are all the stakeholders. And there are many stakeholders in a conversation like this. There's a U.S. Plastics Council. There are all the sectors of the economy that have as part of their business model single-use plastic containers, and so there are battles to be fought step by step by step. And I've been involved in policy battles where we're working to educate on the state level about a policy by introducing legislation, by staging events, by disseminating information, by speaking out to the press, by communicating with our constituents and with opinion makers, and at the same time sending a message to Washington, because we have federal policy that when you enact a federal policy and enforce it, you are covering all the states. You're covering a huge land mass, 330 million citizens. And so I've often worked on policy where you know you're not going to be able to prevail and over all the forces that are working against you on the state level, but you are sending a message to your members of Congress and to Congress as a whole and to the administration that you want this change and that there's citizen engagement and involvement in fighting for this change. And that's the real game changer, is when citizens get active. And as we've worked here in Georgia and built the Georgia Water Coalition is a good example of a stand-up group that has worked tirelessly now for 2 or 2.5 decades on water quality and protecting our waterways, protecting our water sources, and the ecosystem around that water that relies on it. We've seen some wonderful change, but it's because people organized, coalesced, collaborated, built not just one organization, but held hands together and organized on the ground in community after community. And I choose the Water Coalition because it works statewide. It works on a critically important environmental issues. It's very, very much linked to the plastics pollution that Hannah has spoken about so eloquently. But that organization has been tireless and unstinting and risen above the silly little turf battles that organizations can get involved in, sadly, egos, turf. And they've worked tirelessly to overcome those sorts of dynamics that can exist, and to keep their eyes on the prize of fighting for Georgia to have clean water, clean riverways, and the Riverkeeper network that's all across the state is a part of that. All of those things have been built step by step by step with the support of citizens, with the private donations, with foundation contributions, to be able to be a voice on public policy at the Capitol and actually have wins. But you know what? Every year the battle is joined anew, because there are countervailing forces in society that for financial reasons or for ideological reasons do not want to do it the way we want to do it. So that's a long answer to your question, but I couch it in a hopeful framework, because I have seen the good work that can happen. Not with that, the good work that has to be tireless and ceaseless and unending, and sweeping more and more people up in the effort, but that you can change policy. Family medical leave is a policy I've worked on as long as I've been here, and when we first had it, it was getting vetoed by Congress. Ultimately, after I passed it here for our state, the U.S. Congress passed it. Now we're fighting to make it paid family medical leave. So step by step by step. And I have seen the environmental movement really transform things because of all the education that's been done by our wonderful educators in the school systems across the country, so that young people, and I'd be interested to know when Hannah first was touched with an environmental awareness, because many children receive that first inclination and open their eyes and realize that they can make a difference and they can do something very early in their lives. And Hannah's certainly a testament to that. But when did you first decide that you had to take a step,
It really
Hannah?
started with my parents and how they raised me.
Uh-huh.
And technically, my very first speech was in kindergarten. It was show and tell, and it was for Earth Day. And on Earth Day, I grew each student in my class a tomato plant from a seed that you'd buy from like Target. And I grew them in my laundry room for several months so that I can give each child in my class this tomato plant and educate them about starting their own organic garden, and how you can grow your own food and then like make a salad and eat it the next day. And it was crazy, and I loved it. And so that was really, I guess, how it all started, how my parents raised me, and having organic gardens and growing up with reusable bags and taking them to the store. So thank you.
So that, I mean, that's a great personal testimony to how you change things one person at a time. And as Margaret Mead pointed out, famously, that's the only real way that you do change things. It's small groups of dedicated people coming together and working. So I'm very happy to host Hannah today to sponsor the resolution and be a part of continuing this education that absolutely must go on in order for us to change our ways and change policy.
Oh, thank you. The task is immense, but not insurmountable.
That's right. You can't take your marbles and go home. It won't change that way, because there'll be other forces here working to have their way. And that expands on out as to why you want money out of politics, why you want the voices of citizens to be able to be manifested, and you want open access to the ballot box. You want to protect the ability of the ordinary citizenry to live and thrive in a democratic society that allows all voices to be heard and allows us to have a fighting chance at changing policy.
Thank you so much for both of y'all really championing this effort. My question is, obviously this is one of the first steps for plastic pollution. Is there any positive or negative legislation that's coming up that we should be aware of, or people that are passionate about plastic pollution or fighting against it should be aware of?
There have been in years past. I could reference things in the past, but there is nothing that I'm aware of that's going to be a game changer in this legislative cycle. It's an election year, and the most recent big battle on plastics was the effort to do a preemptive state law to prohibit any locality from passing local legislation about how they want to monitor and control the use of plastics in their township or their county, and that was defeated. That effort to control from the state level, local policy on plastic, was defeated. And again, I point to the environmental forces that have been organizing for decades with the help of a few good, strong foundations. I mean, but we are in the midst of a, a massive environmental movement. There's, Earth Day. Remember, nobody knew what April 22nd was. It was just April 22nd, and now it's a high point every year of calling to the forefront the environmental issues that are so critically important. And we continue to learn more. The science shows us more and more and more about steps that need to be taken. We battle down here every year on, not every year, but on protecting the streams, the access, what can happen around water. Can you take your cattle and let them trample all through the creeks of the land? Well, our forefathers did that, and we see where it got us. So protecting the waterways is something that comes up constantly, and the good news is that people in the community that hunt and really treasure our natural environment and value it and understand how important it is on so many levels, the ecosystem, and so there's a bullet and bait crowd of Georgians who come and bring their voices to many of the environmental issues now having to do with the out of doors and protecting our wildlife. The environmental issues spread so far and wide that they're really just countless examples of things that need to be tackled. But I say to you, we have in place and we're continuing to build and grow an environmental movement in this state. And Hannah and the voices of her generation will be the new leadership and come up with new ideas and innovative ideas. But there's not a bill moving or that's been filed this year, pertinent to your question. We have to be over in the chamber shortly, as LaTanya is reminding us. We're convening in the Senate and early in the morning part of our proceedings. I look forward to introducing Hannah and reading the resolution there and hearing from her.
I'm excited.
Thank you.
Yes,